Hey everybody, this is Josh Jacobs, and I am here with my business partner Sean Agnew and the creator of Options Domination, Hitesh, and we are really just making this webinar right now because, despite knowing Hitesh for a while as one of the creators of DS Domination and having such a long track record, binary options is a industry where there are a lot of scams, and we really just want to make sure that this is going to be a company that we can, that we can really support, that we can see being around for the long term, and we really just want to get as much information as possible, maybe see if we can get a little extra something special for our team, the Freedom Success Network. That's what this webinar is going to be about. We're going to try to give you as much information as possible and pretty much just grill Hitesh on all the questions that we have for him. So I just want to welcome Sean and Hitesh. Thank you guys for hopping on this webinar.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on here.
Okay, so I guess the first question we have is pretty much just, how did Options Domination even become an idea of yours, and why, what was the whole idea behind Options Domination?
Oh yeah, actually this is a really relevant thing too, because it ties in with quite a few other things that have happened. So about 2 years ago, right about 2 years ago, a little over 2.5 years ago now, when we first came up with the whole plan for what became DS Domination, when I was drafting that, it was actually supposed to be phase 1. So it was actually predetermined that we were going to have minimum of 4 phases to this entire system that we were going to call the umbrella of domination. Okay, that's kind of the silly code word that we had on the inside. And so this is not like we were like, oh, it looks like binary options are exciting, or that trading is really cool. Let's do something with that. It was actually predetermined, and we had actually decided beforehand. We were going to come up with DS Domination. We were going to build that out. There were very specific steps taken with that to make sure that we could actually build it from ground up as a very trustworthy brand name with a lot of, we have kind of a pretty solid goodwill amongst all our members. We are very much the opposite of typical MLM culture. And that was done keeping in mind that this is just phase 1, possibly in terms of gross numbers, the smallest phase, but also the most important phase. Our second phase was always going to be in the financial markets. So we had already determined that we were going to enter the financial markets. And we had 3 or 4 ideas about that we were mulling about. And before the event that we held in 2014 is when I kind of solidified that, we're going to go with the name Options Domination. And just like DST, we're going to have a flow that's going to begin with options, but it's going to end with other bigger stuff. So notice that DS Domination is called dropship domination, right? But dropshipping is the first and arguably the smallest step in DST. Most of the big money is actually being made in the Genesis side of things, right? With FBA and product sourcing and a lot of those things. So calling it dropship domination is kind of like the name indicates the first step. It's not the fullness of the whole system. And it's the same thing here. So options domination, the first step is options, specifically binary options, simply because they're easy to understand for people who have never traded. They're easy to get into. They're very quick. And then you grow from there and you move into more bigger markets and bigger money. And we can cover all of that during the course of this webinar. But that's kind of the story behind it. And it was actually at the event that I finalized the logo, the name, and the first video, the teaser video that we put up there. And that was all finalized at the event itself. So it was kind of a rush job, but it turned out quite well, I think. So that's the story behind Options Domination, how that came about. As far as the compensation plan side, that came about really from I had actually designed the DST compensation plan, and I had looked at many compensation plans before, and I'd always disliked this thing about MLMs, that they pretend that they have something that's going to be very applicable to the average person. It really wasn't. So DST, we never talk about the affiliate program being applicable to the average user because we know for a fact that it is not. The only people who will make money from the DST affiliate program are people who can actually be affiliates. And that's not the case here. The case with options domination is you're going to generate some income. You actually have the capacity to generate some income without recruiting on the affiliate side as well. Not quite affiliate side, but from the matrices. So that's kind of the separate idea there. It was kind of to up the ante a little bit and say, okay, you can make money with DST without recruiting with the product. Well, now we're going to come up with something where you can make money with the product as well as with the compensation plan without recruiting. So that's kind of what we came up with, and here it is. So this is one of the few things that I'm like, oh, this was actually a pretty good idea. I, pat myself on the back. So that's the story behind it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I guess we'll just jump right in. Obviously, for most of the people watching this webinar, you'll probably know that there's 3 different levels inside of options domination when it starts. Each one gives you different signals, different options, not actually options, but different opportunities inside of there. The main question that I want to ask is really, where do these signals come from? How do we know that we can trust the signals behind here? Do you guys have traders on staff, or how does all that work?
Okay, well, that's extremely relevant given a lot of the things going on in this industry as a whole, and we're all about transparency. So first, let me clarify that it's not different signals, it's they build up on each other. So as an inheritance member, you get a certain number and a certain type of signals. As an enterprise member, you get all of the inheritance signals and more, and as legacy, you get more as well. So you don't have to maintain all 3 memberships. You just need to pick one that is most applicable to your situation. So that's the first thing. Now, in terms of do we have traders on board? Yes, we actually do have traders on board. We have my own stuff, although I'm not professionally a trader, if you will, but I'm pretty good at it. And between that and I'll actually explain how I do my trading and how I develop my algorithms. I'll actually show you guys that in pretty good detail. And so we actually have quite a few traders on board. We actually have a team of traders that we've also contracted that work with us. And there's an ex-Goldman Sachs manager in there. There's I think 8 total traders in the team, and they all have their specialization. We have an end-of-the-day trading guy. We have a person who specializes in Asian trading sessions, so he actually does a live trading session every day for us. Things like that. So we have quite good diversity, but they're all very specific to what they're doing. Okay, so it's not like a one-size-fits-all, or oh, I know this guy who's a great trader. Everybody has that story. I know this guy and he made millions trading. What did he do exactly? What kind of trading? Oh, he just traded everything. No, nobody trades everything and makes money, right? I mean, everybody needs to have a specialization. So we have a team very much like that, and we have very specialized traders for actual forex trading. We have specialized traders for futures and commodity trading, and then we have our own algorithmic signals, which are generated by our algorithm that has been developed in just in the process of this whole thing. So I can actually show you guys these signals actually being generated. Awesome. This is MT4. I think a lot of people are aware of what it is, but if you're not, this is just a very simple visual representation of price movement. Okay, so we are looking at Euro USD. I'm going to look at M15. So in this case, each candle represents 15 minutes. Okay, so let's say that I was looking to take 15-minute trades. What's going on over here is when I run our system, all we are looking to check is would we have won or would we have lost, right? And there is a very interesting thing that happens, and you might have been noticing some of this, but there are lots of indicators out there that people sell and whatnot. So you're going to see, when I run this test, you're going to see some arrows show up. And some of you might have had an experience. I don't know if either of you have traded with any indicator before or other signal services before. And you would notice a very big problem. You would notice that in signal services, usually you don't actually get the price that they're showing you, right? Like they'll give you a certain price and you don't actually get that price. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen that before, and I was hoping you could go more into that, because I noticed when I was doing a bunch of signal, like I'm newer to trading myself, And I've been a part of different signal services, and definitely have purchased a couple indicators. And I always find that it's very convenient that some of these signal services will give you these high win rates, but when you actually look at the strike prices, the prices were never available, and the indicators, people will make videos saying, this was a win, that was a win, that was a win, but those arrows were never in those spots when you actually watch them live. So,
yes,
if you could go into more detail about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, so the indicator thing is actually very easy to explain. It's something that we call repainting. Okay, it's officially called repainting, and it's actually by design. It's not because people are trying to scam you. What happens is people who are not traders themselves use these things or see these things, and they look very pretty in these so-called backtests. And I'm actually going to show you what a backtest kind of looks like. So you would have noticed that some of these guys, they'll show you an image of their results, right? And it looks something like this. Let me see if I can kind of mimic what you might have seen before. You're going to have some bands on here, right? And then usually, let's take a screenshot of this and put this in Paint. And then you will have these little arrows like that.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That looks familiar.
Yep. And then you will have an arrow right there. And then you would have an arrow, let's say, right there. Right? And you would say to yourself, man, this you look at an image just like this and you say, this indicator is awesome. I mean, if I had entered this trade at this arrow, look at that, I would have definitely won. If I had entered at this arrow, I would have definitely won. What you don't realize is that this arrow actually is designed to go to the highest point or the lowest or the highest price in a certain time frame, okay, to see if it has breached certain levels. So it actually goes more like this. The arrow would have appeared right here, okay? Yeah. It actually before that might have appeared right here. And then if you had entered it at that moment, you would have lost, okay? Then the arrow would jump over here, and that's what you would usually hear people say. Well, watch for a while though, because the arrow might jump. Well, no, that's not called jumping. That's called repainting. And it's repainting specifically because it's looking for the highest price in a certain time frame. And then it would, for example, paint itself over here. Okay, and so if you had entered the trade when the arrow actually appeared, you would have lost multiple times. But when somebody else looks at the screenshot, and when you look at the screenshot, you go, man, this thing was awesome. Look, it predicted exactly when it was going to do its thing. And I mean, it's terrible. It's like, they're cooking the books basically. And it's really sad because people who don't understand the stuff, when they question it, when they say, look, this thing is repainting or this thing is jumping, the arrows are not stable or whatever, they come up with their layman's term for the problem there. The guys who sell them these indicators usually say something like, well, you need to take confirmation and you need to wait for the proper volume and you need to understand candlestick patterns and you need to hold on a second. I thought the point of having an indicator that places an arrow is that I don't need to know all that stuff and I don't need to check all that stuff. If I'm going to be checking the stochastic level for the right crossover with the MACD divergence and the breaching of the Bollingers and then the proper volume in the market and not going against the trend and understanding the fundamental news happening for the currency, at that point I might as well just become a professional trader, right? That's the whole point. So why did you sell me this indicator saying that this thing was really good or this thing could be used for trading? And that's the first problem that people see with indicators. Now, signaling services sometimes do a very similar thing. What they do is they will wait for a scenario like this to appear, and when it starts moving down, they will issue the highest price of the previous candle as the entry price. Okay, so the price is already over here, and then they will issue this high price saying you should have entered the trade over here 3 minutes ago. But they don't tell you that that was 3 minutes ago. They act like it is live, and it isn't. And that's one of the other problems that people face, that when they actually go to take the trade, the price never matches up. They're not able to enter the trade in time. If they do enter regardless and they lose, then the signal service provider says, well, you didn't enter at the entry price. That's why you lost, right? So they have their bases covered by saying that. Now, there's an unfortunate thing that happens with this. The unfortunate thing is that in some rare cases, this entry price is given, and then the person goes to the broker to take the trade, and they see that they're able to get that price. And the reason they're able to take that price is because the indicator guessed wrong. Their signaling service guessed wrong, and by the time you went to the broker, the price did go down, but it has already started coming back up. So you enter the trade, and you end up losing. But when you look at their chart, when you look at their table of results, you will say to yourself, well, I unluckily I took the only trade that lost. Well, unfortunately, by design, it means the only trades you're usually able to get are the bad trades. So you look at their table and you're like, this guy has a 70% success rate. Then you look at your results and you have like a 55% success rate or a 60% success rate, maybe 62% success rate, which I'm not saying is bad. You should be happy with 62%. Over time, you could be making a lot of money. But this is where critical thinking is so important. And I think that's a critical thing. I mean, you guys are business people. Just run the basic math in your head. Somebody comes to you, says, I'm going to issue you 5,000 signals a year, and I have a 73, 74% win rate, whatever they claim. Okay, that person should not be issuing signals, because if they had $100,000, if they mortgaged their house and started trading, in 3 years they would be a trillionaire. A trillionaire, okay?
Right.
They would be their own economy. They would be a country to itself. Why would they be selling you this? Right? I mean, think about it. Oh, I have a 78% win rate over 5,000 signals. Well, then why are you even on the internet? I mean, you should own the Eastern Hemisphere of the world or something, and just live in the Taj Mahal or something. Well, that's actually a tomb, so no, you shouldn't be living there. But
right, that's one thing I found troubling too. Is like I signed up for a bunch of signaling service just to I wanted to jump the gun a bit on options domination and just get myself familiar with the terminology and whatnot. But it just drove me nuts that I would see these win rates 77 to 81%, and I'd be trading in like the low 60s if I was lucky. And some of the trades that were counted as wins were trades that I could have never taken, and it's super frustrating. But now that you've explained it to me, I can understand exactly why I was losing those trades while the signal service itself or the indicator was claiming them as victories.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. It just happens a whole lot. It happens way more than any of us want to think. So what the interesting thing is, one of the first things that I wanted to make sure was to come up with a system that is not that does not do that, right? That does not repaint. So we'll actually run a true backtest, not like, oh, look at the pretty picture with all the arrows. We'll run a real backtest where MT4, for example, has a strategy tester. Most trading stations have something like this, where you can actually run a real test where it pretends like the market is happening in real time. And you will notice that most indicator sellers do not ever show you anything like that. Unfortunately, it's because most of them don't know this even exists, because these guys are not traders. These guys have not used these indicators themselves or developed strategies themselves. They're basically just using something out there. They repackage it and they sell it to other people. It happens all the time. It's kind of sad. So, so the first thing that we did is we actually went out and we looked at a lot of different indicators out there and tried to see what was good about them, what worked about them, and found things that worked okay and found things that did not work very, very well. So, for example, here is actually results of different backtests that we have run. And you will see that the first time we ran the Euro USD backtest, we had a 57% win rate over about 2 months. Not a very high win rate at all. But we could see what kind of filtration we could put in place, what kind of things we could do to make it more successful. So this the thing that I developed, which I think is the key reason why we have something like this, is basically this variable strategy system. And what this variable strategy system does, and you can actually see the arrows in here already, right? And unfortunately, this would be like a repainting scenario because it's planting arrows on history, and we don't want that. But what this basically does is it looks at a lot of different parameters at the same time. It is a combination of many different strategies, and it chooses which strategy is the most applicable at that time and uses multiple of those strategies against each other to filter out signals against each other. Okay, so in the end, you don't get a whole lot of signals, right? In fact, you will actually see over here in the results, you'll see actually the next time we run this Euro USD result, we have a 67% win rate instead. And you notice that over a course of 2 months, we had 34 trades.
Right.
Right? We didn't have 340 trades. We had 34 trades because we got rid of a lot of the winning things. We try to focus more on what we can actually predict would be successful. And then you will notice as we continued with our testing with different ideas and different things, we eventually get to this point where you see that we have, over the same 2 months, 44 trades, a 75% win rate. Awesome. And then we keep going with our testing, and we end up, now you'll see that we actually took the same concept, the same strategy system, we apply it to a different currency pair, right? Because sometimes you have strategies that work for one thing, but they don't work for another. So we apply that over here to GBP USD, and we come up with the winning rate of 71. So we're pretty happy. When you find something with a greater than 61% win rate, you should be very happy because you've come across something that is profitable in the long run. So there's one more factor behind it that I'll discuss in a second. But do you guys want me to just run a backtest in front of you? You can see how it works?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will run a backtest for so the ones I showed you were 15-minute trades. Let's go to Euro USD, and should we just run 15 minutes? What time frame do you guys want to run? I'll give you all the picks. So you tell me which time frame you want to run for. This is the expiry time.
How about 30 minutes?
Okay, so we will run a 30-minute backtest, and I'm warning you guys beforehand. There are many currency pairs where when we run the test, it's very successful in 15 minutes, but on 30 minutes, it's not very successful. Then we dump those. We don't issue the signals on that currency pair for that time frame. Okay, so if you see bad results from this, don't be panicked. That just means that we are filtering those out. Okay?
Okay.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to just select a generic moving average EA on here. Okay, we will start it, and now you will see, I'm going to speed this up a tiny bit, and you will begin to see that the market is actually moving. Okay, do you see this candlestick moving?
Yes.
Okay, so what's happening is this is exactly what it would be like in the real market. We're just fast forwarding it a little bit. So we have gone back in time to 29th of September, and now this is playing out as if this was the 29th of September, and it's actually showing us what happened that day. So if we have a good system, it will be able to detect and issue signals properly before a situation happens, right? So you notice that we're not going back and looking at candlesticks and planting our arrows on there. The arrows will actually appear in real time. Okay, so I'm going to plant our multiple strategy indicator on here, and I'm just going to speed this up. Okay, I'm just going to speed this up, and you'll start seeing the arrows appearing. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the auto scroll, so we can actually scroll at a normal speed instead of it going crazy. And we will change the color so it's easier to see from white to red. Okay, so a blue line means that the price went up, a blue candle means the price went up, a red candle means the price went down. Our system is going to be very, very simple. Okay, you will see a small arrow appear. When that small arrow appears, we are going to see what did the next candle do. Okay, so the arrow will appear, let's say, if it appears on this candle, it'll appear below this, pointing up, for example, or pointing down. And we are going to enter the trade at the open of the next candle. Okay, that way we have sufficient warning. That way you can tell, oh, this is cool because it's telling us beforehand that you need to enter. It's not telling us later that you should enter. And you will see that once an arrow appears, it will never disappear. Okay?
That's amazing. So it'll never repaint then. The second the arrow's there, it's there, and you can be confident to take the next
there.
trade.
You can be confident, and if it's a loss, the arrow will still stay there. It'll just tell you that it was a loss. and that's it.
Awesome.
And you just live with it. I mean, how do you test something when it will never tell you that you lost, right?
Right.
So I'm going to speed this up. You can see how fast this actually goes. And here's an example. You see this arrow appeared right below this. You see that the next candle was red. It was not a blue candle, and that would be a losing trade. Okay? So that's just an example of what a losing trade would look like. So we would have entered, and 30 minutes later, we would have actually lost that trade. Okay? So here we see an arrow pointing down, right?
Yep.
And that's basically what we're checking for. We're checking for, does an arrow point down, does an arrow go up, and what was the result? In this case, you can see it's slightly red, but we'll call it a tie. Okay, we won't actually consider that a win. So we're going to keep going and just look at these. So this one is arrow pointing down. The next candle goes down, so we won this trade. Right? We would have entered the trade at this price,
Right.
and the trade would have ended at this price 30 minutes later. So you would have 30 minutes to make sure that you got this entry price. Now you will notice that the price on this candle, I'll zoom in a little bit, the price on this candle actually went up before it went down. That's what this little wick on top means. It means the price actually went up before it came back down. That means you would have had time to actually get even a better position than the signal that we issued. Okay, because we would have issued the signal saying that this right here is the price that you need to enter on.
Right.
And you had all of this space to enter that trade. So you had plenty of time, and you had 30 minutes for that trade to be over. And in this case, you see that we would have lost. So this is I'm showing you guys evidence that this system does not repaint at all. If it's a loss, it'll just say it's a loss, and you accommodate for that, and you move on, and you continue testing. Okay. So here again, you see this, and you see all of these, and here's what our system then starts doing. So this system generates these signals for us, then it sends them to our web-based system. Our web-based system applies a new filter on it that tests against market news, that tests against a few other fundamental factors, it tests against market opens and closes, and that's one of the things that it does. So in this case, for example, if there was a market event over here, which it looks like it was, then our system would have actually prevented you from entering these trades. It would have actually warned you that there's this stuff going on, and it would have never shown the signals on the site. Okay, but we'll actually ignore even that, and we'll just say, let's take every trade that comes up. We'll just take every single trade that comes up. We don't care if there's news in the market. We don't care what's going on. And let's just say that we'll start counting it from, I'll fast forward to January, just so we're not spending like 3 hours going through this. Okay, so we will start here, January, and we will go from here. Okay, so here is the day the market opens, 2nd of January, and let's see. So here is our first signal. Okay, it says the next candle should go up. The next candle does go up. That's a win. This one says next candle should go up. It goes up. That's a win. Let's keep going. This one says the next candle should go up. It does. We win again. This one says the next candle will go down. It goes down. We win again. This one says the next candle will go down. We lost that one. Okay, are you guys counting this?
Yeah, I think we're 4-1 right now.
Okay, 4-1. Okay, this one we'll say it was either a tie. We can count it a loss. Either way is fine. This one is the same. It's either officially this would be a tie most likely, or it would be a slight win because you would have entered at, you could have entered any of these places, but let's just count these two as losses too. Okay, so we are 4-3 now. Okay, we are 4-4. This is a blue going up right here. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so we got 5-4 so far. We got 6-5 here. And here is another one that's a win. So 7-5, 8-6. We lost one, 1-1. We lost this one, won this one. So 9-7.
Yep.
Okay, here is 10-7. Here is 10-8. And here is 11-8, 11-9. Then another win, another win, another win, a loss. So you guys can keep count, but as you can probably already guess, this is not a currency pair that we would be issuing 30-minute time frame signals on for this particular thing, because our criteria is at least a 62% win rate over our backtest. So if we repeated the same backtest, okay, now let's say we'll do it over 15 minutes, and we'll run same time frame. Okay, let's get our candlestick on there. Let's get our system on there, and we will start fast forwarding. Turn off this auto scroll. We'll make a bull candle green this time, so it's actually easier to understand. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll begin this time. Okay. Here we are on the 2nd of January. Okay, so arrow pointing up. Okay, and that goes up. So next candle is green. We win that. Okay, here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 1, 7, 8, 8, 3, 9, 10, 3. That squeaky noise is actually the backtest when it's over. I guess the MT4 developers think it's funny, but 10, 11. I think this was the 11th one. So 11, 4, loss. So we have 11, 6. Then we have a win. So 13, 14, 15, 16, and a loss. So 16, 5 so far. $16, 6, 17, 18, 19, and 20, 21, 22. We're still at 6.
Yeah. 23.
23, 7, 23, 8, 24, 25, 26, 27, and then a loss. So 27, 9, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and a loss of 34, 10.
Yep.
Okay, and then there's 35, then a loss, 35, 11, 36. So we are at 36, 11. Okay, so that basically means we won 36 out of our 47 trades.
Yeah.
That gives us a win rate of 76.5.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but the whole reason why I want you guys to pay attention is there is no one size fits all, right? So we test every different currency pair through a back test like this, and we're actually looking for two things. We're not looking for just the win rate. We're looking for another thing called variance. And what that means is how big of streaks of losses are you getting, right? Let's say that I have a system that wins 70 out of its 100 trades, but 20 of those trades came in a streak of losses. It would have wiped out your account. It didn't matter how much money you had, right? You would lose a significant amount of money there. So when we run a back test like this and we find a currency pair where we have high success rate, but our losses are coming in long streaks, then we don't use that, because there's a risk that when we are issuing those signals, there'll be a long streak of losses like that and our user will suffer. So we don't use those. We don't use any that have a less than 62% off the bat anyway. So less than 62%, we won't use it. High variance, we won't use it. Big streaks of either direction, we won't use that. If it's a system that only issues trades on certain market news, we won't issue that either. So we have all these systems and things in place. And now, out of the 11 trades that you saw that were losses, I know for a fact that 4 of them are actually because of market news. In fact, 2 of those were on the NFP.
Right.
So, we absolutely would not have used those signals anyway. But my point is, nobody actually will typically show you something like this going on. And so what our system would have done is at this moment in time, right here at 10th of March at 11:30, it would have issued a signal. Actually, it would have issued a signal at 11:45. It would issue a signal and say it's going to go up, enter the trade that closes at noon. So you would have entered at 11:45 and you would have exited at noon. Even if you forget about the entry price, you would have actually more than likely gotten a better entry price than just this. But you would see significantly higher win rates. In fact, one of the conditions of the system is that it cannot take more than 10 seconds into the next candle. So on a 15-minute trade, you will get the signal within the first 10 seconds of the new candle beginning to form. And that's why we can be very confident when we look at this. Now, there is an automated way to do this as well. We actually use an automated system that actually generates these summaries for us and shows us what our win rates were. So here's another example. The USD CAD pair had an exact 50% win rate. We're not going to use that on 15 minutes. We actually run a longer back test and see if maybe the results will be better somewhere else. Same for AUD USD. Here's AUD USD in slightly different settings. They did a little better. But as we keep improving those settings, we come across higher and higher win rates. GBP USD here, that's 77. Over here, different settings, we get down to 60. So we experiment with this like all the time until we come up with exactly the right criteria where we have the best chances of success, and that's what we issue. And that's why we can say, if we wanted to really be pushy about it and really market it, we can be like, oh, we have a 77% win rate. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything because that 77% win rate is over a long period of time, over a large number of trades. It could have been down to 50% in a certain month. So when you actually go into options domination, we are actually very clear and we emphasize that you should be aiming for a 62% win rate across the board. Everything else on top of that is, be pleasantly surprised. Now, it has just so happened that during our trading, during all of our testing and so on, we have stayed consistently above 68, 69%. But that's not something that I want to promise anybody because that's just the nature of trading. You see these things happen in streaks. They kind of go up and down. That's just what happens. So some weeks we have an 85% win rate and some weeks we have a 60% win rate. But over time, it stays somewhere between 65 to 70 for these algorithmic trades. Now, there is a whole other category of trading, which is manual trading, where you have an actual physical person, a trader actually sitting there and taking trades, looking at all the market conditions, looking at all of these different factors and combining algorithms in there. And then you have higher success rates. For example, on that one, over the last 7 months, it's been consistently above 70%. It's been actually like 71.4%. And that's like one of our traders, the Asian session trader. The same thing with the end of the day trading results. We have much higher success rates there. So that's kind of the background of what's going on here. Some of the stuff, hopefully you guys can see, we kind of know what we're talking about. We're not just people who are like, oh, this sounds exciting. Let's give people signals. Even if we gamble, we'll be right 50% of the time, and we might get lucky a couple of weeks, and we'll get more than 60%, and people will be happy, right? And that's unfortunately how some systems run out there. That's how they run. And the whole idea is, can I cover my bases enough? Can I delay enough? Can I put enough of a margin, even though the price is over here? Can I issue a signal for way down here and say, take this as the entry position, and when the person loses, we can claim, well, you didn't take the entry position? That's the kind of stuff that we don't do. For us, it's all about manageable, practically, are you going to see success following this stuff? And then, some of this ties in with what these people are actually doing. You will find a lot of these people will sell you an indicator or they'll sell you signaling services, and they'll say, oh, I'll give it to you for free because I'm so generous and so charitable and I want to give you, mercy and hope and all these wonderful things. And all you have to do is go sign up at this broker and put in $300 or $500 or $1,000, whatever. And the reason they're doing that is because the binary broker then turns around and gives them a very nice CPA commission. Just like people who sell guides on how to win at roulette. Right? They sell you this guide and they're like, I'll give you this guide for free. This is the best system in the world. It will never lose. Now go to this casino and sign up. But the casino is going to give them money because the casino knows that over time you're going to lose and the casino will win out at the end of the day. And usually it's something very silly like, oh, just keep doubling your bets until you win. And there's actually people who advocate that even in the realm of trading. They're like, oh, if you lost a trade, that's okay because you will probably win the next one, so just double your trade. And the worst part is even doubling your trade won't make you profitable because your payout is 80%, not 100%. So
right.
It's amazing to me that people get away with this. It's more amazing to me that people let these kind of things happen and they don't question that you should be a trillionaire by now, or you should be not selling this stuff for $10, $20, $100, $1,000, whatever, stuff like that. So for us, it's very much a matter of options domination is more a service than it is just a product. We actually have trading teams, we have these algorithmic testing guys, we have a whole coding team in the background who's doing all this stuff, all to make sure that the end user doesn't have to do all of this nonsense. I mean, if you're going to do all of this stuff, you might as well go and become a trader and then come back and apply and we'll hire you. But if you're just looking to make some money trading, and minor trading really, binary options is for really minor stuff. You're looking to make $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month. Anybody who tells you that you should join up and take all these trades and you're going to make $100,000 a month doing binary options alone is absolutely lying, because no broker is going to be okay with that unless they are regulated, unless they have some insurances in place to make sure that they don't lose out. It's just pure math. It's just pure math. And it's one of those things that people will ignore when it looks like easy money is laying on the table. So that's the boring stuff. That's the boring stuff that's happening in the background, and what we are doing and how our signals are coming in, where they're coming in from, and why we can predict what our success rates are across the board, and why our entry points are actually real entry points that give you plenty of time to enter. You could have entered any time during this 15 minutes. We just tell you that the expiry is for 15 minutes. If you get a better entry price than this, take it. If you get the same entry price, take it. That's totally fine by us, because we are predicting that the next candle itself is going to be a bullish candle in this case, or a bearish candle in the other cases. And that's the bottom line behind it. So awesome. Does that make sense? Does that kind of help clear the air a little bit?
That makes complete sense.
Yeah. Now you talked about, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. You talk a bit about brokers. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on sort of the brokers that you guys have aligned. I mean, you don't need to give us names, but just we were talking before about the differences between how brokers work, and just to give people some assurances on
absolutely
safe with their money and whatnot.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, the one of the intrinsic problems with the brokerage system in binary options in general is that they operate something like a casino. And there is a difference. You will notice that no casino will ever have a problem with how much a player is winning in poker, because that player is getting the money from other players. But the moment you start doing something funny in blackjack or roulette or whatever, they're going to have a problem, because if you're winning, the casino is losing money. But in poker, if you're winning, the other players are just losing money. The casino is not affected. So that's why they'll hold these grand tournaments and whatnot, and they're fine with it. They're like, yeah, take this prize money and enjoy. But that's one of the key conditions. Obviously, I'm not talking about poker that is played against the house, but in general, that is the same scenario with binary option brokerages. So there are really three types of brokerages. There's basically what we call the bucket shops. And the bucket shops are basically, they say, come on in, put your money in, go trade, have fun, and they're counting on you losing, and they're usually right. And in some cases, they'll even use price manipulation and other tricks like that. They're absolutely scummy kind of places. And if you start winning, then they will just say, oh, we don't have your documents, or we have problems with you, or whatever, and then they just won't pay you. So that's the first problem. The second problem is the regulation itself. Okay, so the second is the type of broker. That's a regulated broker. And when we're talking about regulations, okay, so when we're talking about a regulated broker, let me change this color a little bit. to something readable. There are multiple different types of regulations, but a common one is SciSec. And you will see these people are like, oh, they'll flaunt it. We are SciSec certified. Well, that really doesn't mean a whole lot, because the SciSec certification just means that funds are kept separate and a couple other things like that. They're now trying to enforce some new things, but this makes you very susceptible. You know, like they would offer bonuses and say, get this bonus, and then you're kind of locked into this little contract with them where you can't withdraw your money until you have traded a certain amount. Why would they give you that contract? There's a very simple reason. And again, you find the same thing happen with online casinos. The reason the broker gives you a bonus and then says you just need to trade 30 times of this, what they're trying to say is, if we give you $1,000 in bonus, okay, because you put in $1,000 of your own, so now you have $2,000 to trade with. And then they will put a restriction. They'll say you need to trade 40 times of the bonus to make it your own, to be able to withdraw. And that basically comes to $40,000. Well, their intrinsic meter, their internal metrics show them that a person who trades $40,000 will usually lose money, not gain money, on a $1,000 account. And that's why they're so happy to do that with you. And that's the little problem over there, and why a lot of people don't see that happening. And a lot of these bad affiliates are okay with doing that. They'll gladly refer you there because they get hefty CPA bonuses. In fact, in some of these scenarios, the broker will give something like $250 to $350 in CPA commission, like right off the gate. They're not even waiting to be profitable. They go, oh, here's your $250 for referring this guy, because they know that the remaining $750 is coming into their pocket at some point or another. That's the other little problem, that people don't want to think about, that this guy is offering you free signals or they're offering you free whatever because this is where they're getting their money from. So that's the one. And the third type of brokers are they're in two smaller subsets really. There's the insurance brokers, or the insured brokers, who at least claim that they have a liquidity provider in the background, where they are actually are being compensated when the person is taking a trade. Okay, so when you are trading, when you take a trade, then the broker makes money. It's not dependent on you losing. So that's the situation with insured brokers, and that's at least what they claim. It's very hard to actually track this down and prove it. But I have been able to speak with certain brokers. They've been able to give us this in writing instead of just on a phone call or something. They actually put in writing that yes, we actually have liquidity providers. Yes, we actually do receive. We make money when the user is taking trades, not when a user is losing trades, things like that. And then finally, we have the truly regulated brokers. And what these guys do is they basically make sure that every trade taken in the entire platform is against another trader. So if I'm going to go open a trade, it has to be against either the liquidity provider or it has to be against another trader on there. Otherwise, it won't let me take the trade. Okay, just make sure that there's actual liquidity available for those trades to happen. So this is the rarest kind, obviously, as you can imagine. We've been able to find 2 or 3 of these, and then we actually put money into them. We withdraw money from them. We go in with different names to just check out how they behave with their users. We do all sorts of different things to make sure that they treat people correctly. And if you're in the U.S., then the only one that's regulated in the U.S. right now is Nadex. There's a couple others that are coming out, but primarily the only one right now is Nadex. And that's the one that we recommend for all U.S. members. We're like, this is where you go. Now, you still have the option of going to other places. There are other different brokers out there, and you can go to them. And we do offer some very exclusive bonuses for members in the sense of, risk-free trading or withdrawals being available, stuff like that. But there is an inherent risk to those brokers, like I explained earlier, that if they don't have good liquidity providers, if they don't have all of this stuff in place, then they can go bankrupt in a couple of days. Because if we send 10,000 traders to them and we have a good day, right? We have a good day where everybody comes out in general, everybody takes our signals and they come out 20% ahead. Now let's say we send 10,000 traders, they all put in $1,000 each on average. That's $10 million. And they just suddenly came up 20% up in 2 days. That's $2 million. Now that's $2 million of liability for a broker that might not be able to handle it. So you have to make sure the brokers have enough on the balance sheet, they have enough liquidity themselves, and things like that. So that's the whole test that you run everybody through. So we actually found a few, and the few that we found, we are able to work out deals with some of them where we actually told them to roll any CPA commission we would have received. We actually had them roll some of the CPA commission into some bonuses for the member, for the actual trader. And with some of them, we don't even have an affiliate relationship at all. We just recommend them because we found these things about them to be true. And the reason we don't do that is because we don't want our members to think that we are making money when they lose, which is unfortunately the case with a lot of these signal providers and things like that. There was a very famous case in the end of 2014. This guy came out with this auto trader, and he was like, oh, you just make a donation to a charity and you can have my auto trader for free. But once you did that, then you would get the auto trader, and then he would force you to sign up to one of the brokers through the auto trader. It would only work if you actually signed up to a broker through his system. So that's where he was making money. And then the auto trader was actually rigged to make sure that you lost, because that was the only way a broker would work with you, right? Because the broker is like, oh, you're going to bring 5,000 traders into us? Great, but we're not going to work with you because we'll go broke if 5,000 traders come in and they all win. So they actually rig up the whole thing to make sure that the traders will actually lose. Nobody in that entire thing made money except for this guy, and he walked away with, hundreds of thousands of dollars in CPA commissions.
Wow.
So that's the whole danger behind this, and why we've spent so much time and so much money, like I mentioned even in that email to one particular place, that we have a portfolio of about $3 million that we have spread out in all these different brokers, all these different managed accounts, different places, different investments, to test them out before we would ever recommend them to our members. And most people don't do that. Most people don't even think about doing that. Or even if they thought about it, they couldn't, right? Because they are too busy making money, selling this stuff. They don't have money to actually invest themselves. So that's kind of the background of what we have done. Hopefully we have kind of, done all the due diligence anybody possibly could, and our members will be very safe and very happy. But this is a problem. I mean, this is a problem that is being addressed, and I think will go away over time, but it exists right now. So there's that. What else? Do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah, thank you for covering all that. That makes a lot of sense. The other question that you brought up during the back testing is getting signals on time, and I know there's different types of signals. One of the problems, like Sean was saying with the EOD signals, is that you get one and it's never at the right price. Do you guys have something in place for EOD signals? Yes,
it's okay. So first of all, when you actually get the regular signals, whenever you get any regular signals, let me log in here. So all the regular signals, like end of the hour signal or a 15-minute signal or so on, they are actually all pretty, you take it right away. We actually issue it at the strike price, okay? So you won't have that issue with those. But you are right that when we issue end-of-the-day trades, then they're usually issued based on their support and resistance levels and a few different things like that. And so you won't necessarily see the same, you don't actually see that strike price immediately. So you do sometimes need to spend a lot of time just waiting for that signal to hit that price. So what we did here is we have the system in place where you can actually click on set a reminder for EOD trades. Okay, we also call it option mine. You can set this up separately if you want. So what you would do is, let's say that we had issued a signal saying that coffee or gold is going to be below 1169.75. Okay, just purely giving an example. You can actually submit that, and then what will happen is you can go about your business. When we actually hit that price, when gold actually hits that price, then it will automatically email you. You'll get a notification on your phone if you have the app activated. You will get notification within your back office, and basically all of these things will happen at the same time. And then you can come in and you can actually take the trade instead of sitting around and staring at charts for the next 5 hours or 6 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. Okay, sweet. That covers that. Let me see. I have a couple things I wrote down here. Okay, so you covered Nadex. The other question was, I know that, you were in the original webinar you were talking about how it goes beyond binary options, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because I know it's in the future, but, something about me is I've been trading futures for 4 years, and that's something that I'm super interested in the future. Is that something that you guys are going to be rolling out inside of options eventually?
Yes, we actually have at this moment a lot of trading going on ourselves. We actually have few tens of thousands of dollars in oil trading running right now. We have similar in Forex and things like that. And we are doing the exact same process for that as well. We actually keep going further back in time, and we continue to run backtests and develop our EAs and develop our systems to basically make sure that we are actually consistently winning in the long run. I would actually love to pull up one of my reports. Let me see if I actually have it available here. But we actually have some reports where we have $500 turns into $20,000 in a couple of months and stuff like that. Those are not realistic. Those are because you have a strategy that works extremely well in those 2 or 3 months, or something happened with oil that made it work so well over those 2 or 3 months. So we have to actually do a lot more back testing and things like that. And it's one of those fields that we're extremely interested in because you'll make far more money. In my opinion, you can make far more money doing that than you can in binary options. Okay, it's the same progress that we've had in DST. You are going to make more money eventually from that side of the market and in true market trading than you're going to make from binary options. There's like this inherent cap. Think of it like eBay listings. There is a cap there, and you can keep getting it lifted and lifted and lifted, and you can get 5,000, 10,000 listings. But eventually you realize that you could make far more money on the other side, right? So you leave this thing running. It's not that you stop doing this. You keep this running, but then you also go in and you can just start trading in the real markets. And not only can you actually trade yourself, but we'll actually be making our EAs available to you, so you can actually trade automatically, or you can actually put money into a managed account and allow our traders to trade it for you. And that way you don't have to even think about it, and it's just managed for you. And even on top of that, we actually are going to be running these basically buckets, kind of like funding situations, where you can put some funds in and you can select. You can say, I want this to be invested in a low profile or in a low risk, low reward kind of setting, because I'm not looking to make money off of this. I just want to keep my money safe. I just want to multiply over time. Kind of like, how people put money in Roth IRAs and stuff like that. Just a lot better than that, because you could, for example, put, just purely hypothetically, you could put $100,000 in to a very low risk thing that generates, let's say, 10% a year. Okay, I'm just giving hypotheticals right now. But let's say that it was generating 10%. Now you have a $10,000 a year income coming in from interest, right? So that's the idea behind that, and that's what legacy is. Legacy is something you can leave for your future generations. So the idea is that you do all of the stuff, you run your e-commerce business with DST, then you run your, then you get into binary options, you make your quick money over there, you use that money to fund your more aggressive, in the sense that they're not true investments, they're market trades, but it's more aggressive. You can potentially generate, 50, 60% over the year. A lot of people do that. Not promising that, but it does happen. And you can take that and put that money then, let's say by the end of your life, from all of the above combined, and your affiliate income stream and your matrices and all that stuff, and the future stuff that Domination brand is going to be coming out with, you put that all into your wealth protection asset system. And the idea is, even if you're generating just 10% a year, at the end of 20 years, when you have, compounded that money and you have also added more money over time, you actually have something that you can live off of very comfortably. That's the position that I am in right now. That's the position that Jason Rose, who's the owner of Options, he's in that position as well. We have investments right now in situations like that. These are not trading accounts. No money is being traded. It's actually extremely safe. So probably, I mean, it's as close to safety as you can get in many ways. And we are generating enough in interest that we know that if anything happened to us, our families would be completely fine because they have enough coming in interest. And that's kind of the idea, that should be your aim, right? To leave something for your future generations, and that's the whole circle. That you begin in inheritance, you end with a legacy, which becomes inheritance for your future generations, and that's kind of the loop little thing. And you use the inheritance to develop an enterprise, which would be your e-commerce business as well as your trading stuff that is being run for you even. And that's the whole loop here, if you will.
Okay, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. And just as you're scrolling through there, I see that there's some stuff on there that says live trading. That's something we didn't cover yet. I remember you mentioning something about live trading sessions. Can you go over that?
Yes, absolutely. So like I mentioned before, we actually have traders who are working with us, who are either contracted to us, or they're part of our team, or they are a part of Options Domination itself. There's, all these different levels of, I guess, agreements or working relationships that we have with them. And we have a few of them who actually will run live trading sessions with our members. And what happens with the live trading session is it's actually a pretty cool little thing. So inheritance members don't actually have live trading sessions. You actually get a fixed number of credits every month that you can turn in for a session. Okay, you can buy more credits if you want more sessions and so on, or you can actually transfer these sessions to somebody else. So you could, for example, give that to your brother and say, here, attend this session, take the trades, and you will see that it works really well. So on this particular live trading service, the particular trader that is going to be the primary trader who trade about 80% of the time on here with everyone is averaging a little over 70% over the last 8 months of data. So we have long-term data. We have seen the results. And one of the good things is that this person will say sometimes, okay, it looks like we have 2 trades and that's it because the market is very choppy right now or whatever. And they are able to, this live trading session is, for one, very exciting because people get to trade right then and there. They get to see it. It's a fixed time. You can basically say, I'm going to trade for 45 minutes every day, and this is the time I'm going to trade. And this also incentivizes our enterprise and legacy members because you can buy access to our trading session for $15 each. But if you're an enterprise member, then you already get 7 sessions per month. And if you're a legacy member, you get 18 sessions every single month. So it's like if you look at the cost of it, you already get more in enterprise just in the training sessions, not counting the extra training and the extra stuff and the extra matrix and the extra earnings and the extra signals, not counting all of that stuff. You actually already get more than the fair value from these 7 trading sessions that you get. And then the same thing at legacy level because, that's 18 times 15. I think that's 270. Again, you're getting the fair value just from there already. And like I said, the good thing is that you have the ability to actually share this with other members on your team, with other members who are in your downline, with personal contacts, things like that. So you can actually give them a session and say, here, attend this session. You will see how great this is. And then, join me at enterprise level or join me at legacy level or whatever. That's up to you. I mean, you can use it as a marketing angle or you can use it purely because it's a good thing and you should be sharing it. But that's something that the live trading system does.
That's really cool. That's actually a really cool bonus that we could offer to new members or people already in the system looking for an upgrade. I know people love the live trading rooms, so that's a really cool feature that you guys added in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, that's cool. So we covered live trading. Let me see. I guess the last thing that I want to go over is, there was a little bit of skepticism about, I guess, where signals are coming from and things like that. And I just wanted to clear up with you and everybody that's listening to this webinar. You guys are generating your own signals. You're doing all of your own things like that. We covered all that stuff. I guess I just wanted to bring that up and.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So first of all, let me give you some context to this. Understand that we haven't even launched. We haven't even made the whole system live, and we're already the 800-pound gorilla in this niche, right? There's almost nobody of our size already. So what do you think goes through the minds of the average signal service provider when they see somebody of our size, our reputation coming in? They kind of worry, right? They worry that most of their members are already getting average results at best, and they're like, these people are going to come out and they're going to take over. At the same time, they see this as a great opportunity because they're like, oh, they haven't launched yet, they have a name, we can target their keywords, we will target the Options Domination name, we can do whatever we want to try and get more attention to ourselves. And again, keep in mind, it's the scale of things. For some of these people, being able to get 200, 300 members, 500 members by lying about stuff or by getting attention to themselves is like a life changer. They've never seen that kind of money. They've never seen that kind of membership levels. So they will go out and attack. Same thing happened with DS Domination, right? We launched DS Domination. Once the buzz came out about DS Domination, suddenly everybody and their mother was an eBay trainer. Everybody suddenly had an eBay course. And they're like, oh, we can teach you how to sell on eBay. And you're like, well, where were you a month ago? Where were you 5 months ago? Where were you a year ago? So we announced Options Domination back in June. And then suddenly, right after that, there was this excitement that started spreading about it. And all these people start trying to cash in. They start cropping up. They're like, oh, this is, we can get in here and whatnot. And so this one particular service, they provide signals, and I really liked their display. They had a very nice display for their signals. They had a little beep that went off, and it told you that there was a signal that went. And I was like, oh, this is a nice little system. So we were putting a similar kind of table in our Options Domination members area. Now keep in mind, this is a members area that nobody has paid for. It is not live. Nobody can pay for it. It's like just completely a testing ecosystem. Okay, that's all it is. This guy somehow goes into our testing site, and this is the absurd part of it. I actually have this in our Skype conversation because I asked him. I said, "How did you get into our test site?" And he says, literally types out, "Ha ha, you tell me." Okay, what does that mean? So he goes into a testing site, which is not live, that nobody else is allowed, nobody else is seeing, takes screenshots from there, basically claiming that, look, they're copying my signals. Now, this was the absurd part, that I'm actually going to, here's the invasion of privacy stuff right here. I'm actually going into my account. You guys can actually see this is my email account. Now, I had actually tested out the service back in December. And I actually wrote them an email because I had such horrible results with them. So you can actually see the email that I wrote them. I said, strike prices on signals are not valid. You can see it's from me. I've been trading binary. And you can see I told him, I was like, look, I have a portfolio exceeding $3 million. I'm not a newbie. I totally know what's going on here. You have tons of examples that are counted as wins on the site. The strike price was never available at the broker. This is just one example. I gave them a specific example. And what is going on here? Are we supposed to wait until the strike price is reached, or do we take the trade the moment the signal is provided? How are you supposed to trade these to get the win rates that you guys claim? And they wrote me back, and they basically said, this is the gist of it, that different data feeds happen, which I get it. There's different data feeds out there, and sometimes there's slight mismatches in price. But if the signal system shows a 10-minute expiry, but the entry isn't good at the start, you could watch for a better entry around. Okay, right there. Stop for a second. You are telling me that I need to figure out what a good entry is, which is totally subjective, mind you. It's completely subjective. The purpose of a signaling service is to tell me what is a good entry and a good exit. But I need to just kind of magically divine that from looking at this table. Okay, if I'm supposed to do that, then you should put in results not applicable. You should not be saying win, right? So this was the weirdest part to me, because I was like, okay, it'd be one thing if this guy had really good results and I was like, man, you have really good results. Can I copy your stuff? That would be one thing. I have documented confirmation from we have exchange of emails. I've told him your results are bad. I mean, this is a lie. If I wanted to steal signals, right? If I didn't have this whole system, you guys didn't actually see me do all of this stuff. But let's say that I actually wanted to steal signals. Why would I go to the guy who I already told that his signals are bad? What sense does that make at all? It's like going to somebody and going to a jewelry store and saying, I know that all your gold here is fake and it's worth nothing, and then trying to break into that store to steal it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So the weird thing was, I actually told him that. I actually told him, even once he put out this little thing saying, oh, Options Domination is stealing my signals, poor me, I'm the victim here, try to get attention to himself. I actually contacted him, and it was a really bad time for me too. We had to push the Options Domination launch because of the situation with my son, and I was like, hey, look, I'm really not in a very good place right now. This is like the worst timing for me to be having this conversation. But this is what happened. This was a testing area. We had a table that showed your signals because we really liked the look of your table, and we were working on making a similar table. And not only, it was almost like he realized that I was in a personal situation and I really wasn't in the mood to try and deal with this right now. So he kind of took that and ran with it. And he actually approached many other people and was like, do an interview with me and I'll show you that they were stealing my signals and whatnot. And now it's kind of blowing up in his face, obviously, because I would have never even mentioned this, right? But now here's evidence that, look, the strike prices are invalid. You don't get good results if you actually trade their signals. Anybody who's actually traded their signals can tell you that. I'm not the only one. There's other people who have mentioned that. But this is the thing. To us, the existence of this competing service is a non-issue. We didn't care at all. But now he's kind of brought it on himself for us to have to expose and say, look, guys, we weren't stealing because he actually has bad results. It's like somebody coming to us and saying, well, they're using my indicator. And I'd be like, look, I wasn't going to say anything, but here, I'll show your indicator. This indicator, is this what you're talking about? Because this is a repainting indicator, and it is absolutely fake, and people will lose money using it. So he kind of just shot himself in the foot by making a big deal out of it and trying to make it seem like we were stealing signals. And again, final point, simple question. Why would we steal somebody's signals, right? And how would we steal somebody's signals when we announced our company and us going into options and issuing signals before this guy even existed?
Right.
So many holes in the entire theory. I just don't care for it as much, because you have to understand there are three types of scammers in this world. Okay, there are those who are without conscience, literally psychopaths, don't feel anything. Then there are those who actually have a conscience, but the lure of money or greed or whatever just makes them go crazy. And they're like, oh, I don't care. I'll just go with this right now because the money is too good to give up. Okay, that's the second type. The third type are the worst type. These are the so-called philanthropers. They pretend that they're trying to watch out for you, like they're the scam buster site and so on. There was one particular site I saw, and he had this whole elaborate scam warning about Options Domination. And it was very interesting to me because I was like, we have not launched. You do not know our stance on brokers. You do not know our signals performance. You do not know our live trading. You do not know our education. You do not know our history. You do not know our portfolios. But you have this entire straw man created about how this will be a big scam. And that's so horrible. Why was this guy doing it? Why do these people do that? Well, it's very simple. They want you to go to their sites. They want you to feel like they've rescued you from a scam, so that you will go and sign up to brokers from their links so they can make money. It's like so morally bad. It's like so morally messed up. It doesn't even make any sense that people are allowed to get away with this kind of stuff. And I guess they are not. We could legally go after them and make a big deal out of it. But that's all it is. And again, I didn't even care. Even when I talked to this guy on Skype, I told him, I was like, look, if this was an honest mistake, you thought that something bad was going on here. I'm sorry, there was nothing going on though. And, end of story, bridge into the water. Let's see if there's any way to correct this, and everything will be fine. And it was funny because he actually said to me, he said, oh, I absolutely don't think that I can take on a company of your size. I'm not trying to pick a fight and whatnot. This is all like written in Skype, by the way. I mean, I can pull this up. And then what happened is, a few days later, he realized that just from having targeted Options Domination name and from all the, haboo on Facebook about this, that he suddenly got 300-400 new members. And for him, that's more people than he has ever signed up in his life. For him, it's suddenly like, what, 400 people who are signing up to my scam recommendation of brokers, which means I'm making $12,000, $15,000. Well, bully for me. This is the best thing that has ever happened. Let me go out there and trash them more. And it's like, at some point, people are going to say, look, you need to stop because you're being absurd. So that's kind of what happened. And now, thanks to this webinar and then this interview, and then I'm actually probably going to make a note about this in the Options Domination back office now, thinking about it, for a scam warning like this. It's silly. It's like absolutely silly and horrendous.
Right.
That this is how people operate, and they think that they're going to go out with it. Now, what's going to happen, though, is you're going to see legitimate win rates displayed by us with complete transparency. I mean, and again, I just showed you guys that, look, on 30 minutes, this particular currency with this particular strategy for trading, we do not get good results. And month over month, you have to check at the end of the month. At the end of the month, we are consistently above 63, 64%. That's the aim. There are weeks where we are over 80%. Okay, great, awesome, enjoy it, but don't go crazy. Don't think that that's going to continue forever. Because if there was a way to predict the market with 80% certainty at every single time, every single day, with expiry times and everything else, it just wouldn't happen. The system would keep changing itself. And that's what it is. But, there's an interesting conversation I had. So one of the things that I like doing, which I probably won't be able to do after now, because now I'm actually revealing this, is we go to brokers, and I pretend to be like a total newbie, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, man, this sounds really exciting. How much money can I make? And they're like, oh, you can make like 15% a month is very achievable. I mean, you put in 10,000 here, you can absolutely make all this money, blah, blah, blah. Like, they're totally, these are brokers, and they're totally like saying very unethical things. They're actually not allowed to say stuff like that. They're saying that to try and get you to make a big deposit. And obviously, like, I act like this foreign guy who just has way more oil money from his family than he knows what to do with. So, do something else. So they like giving me all these strategies I know are useless, just weird strategies. But interestingly enough, I also found certain brokers that would give very good signals, that were giving very good information. It was kind of surprising. That was actually one of my little tests to see what is this broker trying to have me do in the end. Is he trying to just have me be successful and keep trading with them, or is he trying to have me go bankrupt after giving me an illusion of success? And you see a pretty good distinction right from that too. But the other thing I did is I actually contacted, as the background providers for these brokers are Spot Option, Tech Financial. They have the biggest market share. Yep. And I actually contacted them and I said, hey, I want to set up my own brokerage, but I'm worried that I'm going to lose all this money. I mean, what if all these traders are trading really well? And kid you not, again, I have this in writing. It's so horrifying. This guy goes, well, where have you been trading? What kind of results do you get? And I told him, across all my trading between market and news trading and some of the other things, I look at between 70 to 75%. And this guy, this is actually the CEO, okay? And I'm just being cautious about revealing too much because I don't know if there's legal ramifications. But this is the CEO of one of the top 3 largest technology providers to these binary brokers. I mean, they all use these systems. And he said, well, they won't let you trade very long. The broker won't let you trade very long. And I was like, why is that? And he was like, well, if you're winning, if you have a net winning, then the broker won't work with you. And I was like, no, I mean, they would. I mean, why would they not? And he was like, well, look, we designed our system to make sure that over time you will lose. Okay, now why is he telling me this? He's telling me this because he thinks that I'm going to set up my own brokerage, right? So he's trying to convince me that, look, traders are going to lose over time. And he gives me this number and he says, if you are a little aggressive and you have the right call center and look, we'll hook you up with all of the stuff, you just need to change your mindset and you need to be okay with your traders losing money. When they lose money, you make money. And he quoted me and he said, how many traders do you think you could get? I said, well, probably about 25,000. And he said, well, you can expect to make about $3,000 per user. That's about how much they lose. So you should be making $75 million in the next 6 months. You just need to change your mindset and be okay with scamming them. And this, wow. I know this sounds so like out there, like you're like, what? Nobody would talk like that. This is the actual conversation, and not only on the phone. This is a written conversation. This guy was comfortable writing this to me and saying and trying to convince me to open my own brokerage. That's one of the things that I was saying. You know, nobody that I know of goes to that level of checking into what's really happening behind the scenes. Are these people trustworthy? Can you actually work with them? What are they going to do? What if tomorrow these guys run away with your money? Is there anything that you can do about it? With Nadex, you can. That's why we keep saying, you know, Nadex is your number one option. Now, here's the other brokers where we have deposited and withdrawn, and we have worked with them, and we have done tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of business with, and things have gone okay. Here are some of those. But we are very cautious about saying that there are recommendations, because if we say that, we don't want people to think that they're across the board legit.
Right.
It's so hard in this, and I wish people who have already sent a lot of people to brokers would have thought about this before instead of thinking about their affiliate checks.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. That is a crazy, crazy conversation. Well, thank you for covering all that. I mean, that covers everything. That gives people an idea of what's going on. You know, one of the things me and Sean probably want to say real quick is we are working on something to give to our team members as a bonus for FSN members. So that's right. Something we're working on for you all. And I just want to obviously get this out of the way. You know, we've been talking about income this whole time. You know, your results may vary. Past performance is not a guarantee of future income. However, you know, everything that we've shown you in here gives you the idea of the possibilities with this system. And from what I've seen, you know, I'm super excited. I mean, this is going to be incredible. I was talking to Sean last night about this. You know, I could barely sleep. I love this type of stuff. I can, honestly, it's tough for me to fall asleep at night thinking that this is launching in a few days. But so we are working on something to give for you guys. Sean, do you have any other questions for Hitesh while we're in this interview?
No, I just wanted to thank you, Hitesh, for coming out and giving us your time for you know, hour and a half we've been on here, and just setting the record straight on a lot of issues and showing us the background and behind the scenes look on how these signals are developed, giving us the story about brokers. I think anybody who's watched this webinar in its entirety will have, you know, 100% strong feeling that they are in the right place, that, you know, you guys have their best interests at heart, and their money is, you know, going to be protected as much as possible away from scammy brokers and scammy indicators and scammy signal services. And, you know, we just appreciate all that you do, and looking out for all of our members, and I'm just really excited for this thing to launch in a few days. So thanks again for coming out and giving us your time.
No, absolutely. Anytime. And, well, not anytime. given specific parameters of time and freedom in life, then yes, I would be willing to do that again, but not anytime. And no, thank you for having me. It's really great. I really like what you guys have been doing with the FSN team. I've actually seen the values that you guys have and the value you have been providing your teams. So that's been very encouraging, and that's one of the reasons why I was okay with you guys saying we're going to grill you and make you prove this. And I'm okay with that. I would rather that people be thorough with us, doubt us, and then be proven, you know, then let it be proven that the system is good, instead of just believing it blindly and then regretting it later. So like Josh said, I do want to again state, I think I made it clear during the conversations as well, whenever I was talking about hypothetical situations, there are hypothetical situations. There are some things that are factual. I mean, this is a factual backtest. We ran this backtest, and this was the result. It's replicable. We can repeat it 50 times, and we're going to see results like that. So there are some factual things. However, these factual things are based on past, and that doesn't necessarily reflect on the future. You know, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that can happen all the time. There could be, you know, you could have just taken a trade for Euro USD, and there's an earthquake somewhere in London or whatever, and it throws everything haywire. You know, so stuff like that can happen. But by and large, as far as algorithmic trading goes, the numbers we have presented in this webinar are actual, true, verified, back-tested numbers. We are able to reproduce those for anybody who wants to see them. And I'm not saying that proves that this is the exact same rate or even close to the same rate that we will have in the future. Like we said, price moves in cycles in the same way, so does the streaks of wins and losses, and kind of moves in cycles sometimes. So with all of that said, if you guys have any more questions, you know, you are in very good hands with Sean, Jesse, and Josh. If you guys have anything that you want to be covered in a different webinar or more thoughts or ideas for things, you know, run it by them, and I'm sure we'll try and incorporate everything we can. Okay, so you guys have a great evening.
Thank you so much for coming on, Hitesh. Really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me, and you guys have a great evening, and
you
everybody
too.
watching this too.
You too.